Hey there! It is Wealth Building Wednesday. Yes, every other Wednesday, Kate and I come on and we do a Wealth Building Wednesday. And today we are talking about now you want to buy a house. All these other weeks, we've been talking about credit, we've been talking about debt, and we've been talking about money and getting yourself prepared. Well, now we're going to talk about buying a house. Yes. It's a
Absolutely.
great thing when you have the ability to buy a house. You are gonna be an adult, right?
That's when you
Welcome to
start
the adult.
adulting.
Right, right.
Yeah.
And then you're gonna realize that you wanna go back to being a kid because adulting is just a crazy thing, but I digress. All right, so, we're gonna talk today about, preparing yourself to buy a house and what it's going to take to get that done. So the first thing I'm going to bring up is this checklist. I'm going to take us off. And I have this home buyer questionnaire. And basically what it does is it goes through all the different things a particular buyer to um, is going to need. So from financing to requirements on what they want in their home, just everything, the contracts, the understanding of the contracts, all of that. So what I do is I do a buyer consultation, and it prepares the buyers for what they're going to need to understand. So contracts, um, um, verbiage, terminology of the real estate industry and markets. So from there, um, we go into the financing part. Um, when you are getting ready to look for homes, the first thing you're gonna do is not go on Zillow and look at houses. Like that's the last thing that you do, right, Kate?
Yes.
Everybody wants
Absolutely.
to jump on Zillow and start looking for houses, and that's just simply not the case. The first thing that you're
Well,
going to do go ahead.
I was just going to say, one thing I learned about Zillow is that they are now actually a brokerage themselves. So if you are going on Zillow, which is fun, it's fun to look at,
Right.
right? But that's not necessarily the best way to go about purchasing a home for yourself when you're out there looking. Fun to look at, certainly, but not the best resource. They aren't on your side. Let's just put it that way,
No,
right? They are
no,
more. They're out there for them. They're not out there for you. And
correct.
your agent, your realtor, is out there for you. So they're going to take your
Exactly.
list of your things that you would like, right, and find those things for you.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. So we're going to go back here and we're going to go to the price and finance. So you wanna find a house in the $300,000 range. Well, the first thing that we have to do is we have to figure out, can you afford $300,000? And the way to do that is we're going to get you pre-approved. So in that pre-approval process, guess what happens? They look at your debt to income, they look at your credit, and what have we been talking about the last what 2 months about money
Right? All
is
the
credit
things. How
and
to
debt.
get your financial house in order, right?
Exactly, exactly. So in order to get pre-approved, you have to have your credit in good shape. There are opportunities for people with lower credit to get pre-approved, and you have to contact your mortgage person to figure out kind of where you fall into. But I feel I'm not a mortgage person. I don't claim to be. But I feel like your debt to income is really kind of a bigger factor in getting pre approved because you can have a credit score, but your debt to income is what you can afford each month. And you have to have a
Yes.
certain percentage based on the term, like whether it's a conventional, whether if it's FHA or MISHDA or whatever, you have to have a certain percentage of debt to income that you have to qualify for. And
Yeah.
then that depends on what your interest rates will be. And some will be higher and some will be lower. And So you that credit and that debt, and again, we've been pounding it home, is so vitally important to prepare yourself to buy a home. And so getting yourself pre-approved is the first step. And why do you have to get pre-approved? How come you can't just go and look at houses? Because in order to put in an offer on a house, you have to, one, know how much you can afford. Okay? So when we're going out looking at houses, I have to know how much you can afford. If we're going to go and look at a house that's $300,000, but then you're pre-approved for 250, well, guess what? We just wasted a bunch of time looking at houses at 300,000 because you could only afford a house that was at 250. So pre-approvals are going to tell us where we're going to look for houses. Then when we go to put in the offer, that seller is going to look for that pre-approved amount. Does that pre-approval, and not a pre-qualification, because pre-qualification is just a, hey, I looked at your name, I looked at your credit, and you're good to go. Like, it's not an in-depth pre-approval. So if you I lost my train of thought. So on the pre-approval, oh yeah. So on the pre-approval, are you needing to sell a house, right? So is that a like a criteria that you have to meet? Is it the taxes? Are the taxes going to be low enough on that particular house? So the pre-approval is one part of your pre-approval, but then there could be criteria within that pre-approval that you need to meet as well. So I'm saying that because a seller will look at that pre-approval, and as long as you conform to what everything states in that pre-approval, they're more willing to accept your offer, taking into consideration other parts of that purchase agreement. They're going to take your offer over somebody that submits a purchase agreement without a pre-approval, right?
Absolutely. And how disappointing would it be to go look at all these houses and either A, not actually be qualified to purchase it, or B, you put in an offer and you don't have your homework done ahead of time, and somebody else who has gotten pre-approved and who has checked all the boxes, done all the things, wins because they've done all of that, right? So you might have the same offer, but if you're not pre-approved, I mean, I would take the pre-approved offer all day long over somebody who's put an offer in, but they're not pre-approved.
Exactly.
Another thing I wanted to point out.
Yeah, go ahead.
Sorry, I was just going to say that just because you're pre-approved for 300, 400,000, whatever the number is, doesn't mean you should spend it. Doesn't mean you need to spend all of that. You should find a house that comfortably fits within your financial strategy as a whole. You don't ever want to end up house poor. That's never a great idea. So that's
Yes. So exactly what Kate said. So you have to take into consideration, just because you're pre-approved at, let's say, $400,000, doesn't mean that you should actually get into a house that is $400,000. And here's why: because you have taxes, you have insurance. You should take into consideration any, like, do you have two incomes? What happens if one income drops off? That's really kind of what I did when I was looking for my house. Is, okay, I'm married, but I need to look for a house that I could afford if something happened to my husband.
Right.
So that's how I went in. My pre-approval was like 200,000 or something, and I ended up buying a house that was 120. And that was okay. I have shelter, right? And now when the market's at where it is right now, it's worth much more, right? So and I'm not house poor. I'm not having to live in my house all the time and not being able to not go out because I'm house poor, because I've strapped myself, because I bought at what I was pre-approved for, which is, I think, the biggest mistake first-time home buyers make.
Absolutely. I think so too.
Yeah.
100%.
Yeah. Do you have any questions for me, Kate?
Well, I know that we've talked, up to the purchase, right? Once somebody buys a house, after that, the following year, what are some of the pitfalls or holes they might land in if they don't plan for them?
Oh, great, great question. Okay, so the biggest pitfall that most people fall into, especially now that home prices are like extremely high, and they're high because we of supply and demand. If you know anything about economics, if there is low inventory, that makes it a bigger demand, and when you have a bigger demand, the prices go up. So that's just economics 101. Which I ended up leaving economics class, but I learned that part of it. But I say that because the prices are really high right now. And so when people
Mm-hmm.
are buying houses, everything looks great on paper when they first buy it. A year down the road, those taxes become uncapped. And when they become
Right.
uncapped, that's when the escrow shortfalls come into play. And escrow shortfalls are really kind of a big kick in the gut for most home buyers. And I've seen it so much over the last couple of years. And what an escrow shortfall is that the taxes become uncapped, and so they increase based on the sale price of the home, the millage of the city or township that they're in. There's a calculation, and your mortgage person should be doing their due diligence to let you know what that approximately could be. I actually have an Excel spreadsheet my mortgage person gave me to calculate those things. Um, but you should have somebody calculating those so that you can take that into an account when you're going out to look at a home and put an offer in. What is that? What are those taxes going to be in a year? Because I have a certain buyer that unfortunately her mortgage person didn't do that due diligence. And we bought a couple of years ago, and she got socked with a big, huge escrow shortfall. And it almost pushed her out of being able to afford that home, and she might have had to sell. So the biggest thing everybody has to look for, and it happens a year after you have purchased that house because the taxes become uncapped. Um, so
Right.
I say that it's a year after, but you should be looking at it going into the purchase agreement. You don't go in just saying, "Oh yeah, I can afford this home. I can." The taxes are great right now. You have to think about it down the road a year from now. That's the biggest expense
Right.
I see most buyers are going to have to deal with. And then obviously, the other part is finding the little intricacies that happen when people are in an empty home, right? Because most times, you go into a home that's furnished. And unfortunately, sometimes people will hide things and things like that. So then you have these little intricacies that come up that you didn't know on certain homes. So that ends up being I feel, the second highest cost for most people.
Yeah.
Don't you agree?
Oh, definitely. I mean,
Yeah.
I can think of examples for both, but yeah, I
And
think most people
you don't
you're
use your
right.
credit card for that. You don't use your credit card for those emergency
Right?
things.
Definitely not.
Go back to
Right?
our old
I
DiLiddo.
do. I think you are right, though. Most people don't think about when they're looking for a new home that, maybe that homeowner has built that house and has been there for 30 years or what have you. And what's going to happen when that house sells is the cost of, you know, everything, the escrow, the whole deal is going to go up because it's now going to be revalued, right? So everything's going to go up. The township's going, or the city or whatever. I live in a township, so it's going, yes. And
And
now
even
you're
the
going to be paying
insurance goes
more.
up. The insurance
Yeah,
goes up too because it costs more to rebuild that house than it did a year ago or 2 years ago. So your
yeah.
insurance is gonna go up significantly. So both of
I
those
do.
both of
I
those things
sorry.
are gonna change your escrow.
Yeah, I do think if you have a great homeowner's insurance agent, that they should keep you up. The person who is living in that home and who is the seller, they should be on top. The insurance agent should be on top of that to maintain the coverage for what the value is. yeah, that's another topic we could probably talk about, because people, um, are just like, oh, I've got my insurance, but they don't necessarily have, they've been paying the same thing, or they get the standard rate increase like everybody's gotten, right? But that doesn't mean that you have more coverage, but your house has more value too. And
Correct.
I think people won't, you're right, people don't think through that buying a house. And then I don't know about you, but every single time I've bought a house, I've gone in and changed things, upgraded things, or whatever, whether it's right away or over time. And that's another thing that's going to change the value of the home going forward for the homeowner. So, yeah.
Yeah, very much so. Very much so.
Yeah.
All right. I think we've hit everything. I'm just going to summarize really quick.
Yeah.
The finance part of this is getting yourself prepared to buy the home is the biggest thing that you can do. Save money, right? Do all the strategies that we've been talking about in the
Mhm.
Wealth Building Wednesday. Get yourself in a good position to have a budget, because that's going to help you when you buy a house.
Absolutely.
Budgeting helps you to save money. Getting rid of your debt is going to get you in a good position to be able to purchase a house with a possibly lower interest rate.
Absolutely.
And when you're fixing your debt, obviously your credit's going to get better. So,
Mhm.
it all really goes hand in hand, and is it just is like a big it's a big domino effect, right? Like if you screw up anything on your debt, it's going to affect your credit, right? And when it
100%.
affects your credit, it's going to affect your ability to buy things. So
Yeah.
it's just, yeah. And
And
we were all young, right? We were all
oh,
silly, and
yeah.
we
Oh,
did those
yeah.
things. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. My first house was way more house than I should have had, for sure. Um, Also, if you go into your new house purchase with not so great a credit score and what have you, and you manage to get into a home with a mortgage and everything, your homeowner's insurance is going to cost more than if you have good credit. It's just a
Yeah.
fact. It's just
Yeah, and that
the way
wasn't
it is.
so a while ago. Like, I remember when I was growing up and I was first starting to drive, like, insurance didn't really look at your credit score, but that
They do now.
changed. Yep, they
They
do
do
now.
now. Yep.
Yeah, so I mean, your credit's, unfortunately, it's a necessary evil, but you have got to get it straightened out. You have to get it straightened out.
Yep.
So, all right, so we come to the end of our video. I hope everybody's found some great value in this video. We have Kate's information here. Kate is such an amazing person to just talk to and ask questions about in reference to your money. So, really reach out to Kate and at least get the ball rolling on getting yourself in a good financial position. And as always, Kate is going to share her disclaimer. So, this presentation, all
This
correspondence.
conversation, all correspondence from me, information, all the things, right, from myself or her Money Empowered, are just thoughts, shared ideas. Before you make any financial, tax, or legal decisions, please contact your advisor per your specific situation. Just because there are so many variables to anything that, to any financial choice, that you really need to have tailored advice to your situation, and not just go, oh, well, I saw it on this.
Right.
As you know, when you're going through your list to plan purchasing a home, there's so many different things on there that contribute and are a variable. And same thing with anything financial. So yeah.
Exactly. Exactly. And then we'll just share my information. I work with buyers all the time. Buyers can be sellers. So listings are my specialty. I do focusing on educating all of my clients, because I think it's vitally important to make sure that everybody's educated about the process. I do homeschool my son, so there's that. I love that. But just get yourself prepared. And we hope you find value in each and every video that we share. And make sure that you put
Yeah.
questions in the comments if you have any, and reach out to us if you need us. Take care.
Absolutely. We're here.
Thank you.